Yes. So, good evening, everybody. Happy New Year as well. I know we're in February already. So welcome to the Social Inclusion and Community Safety PAC, 2nd of February. Welcome to tonight's meeting. My name is Stella Antoniades, Councillor Stella Antoniades, and I'm the chair of this Social Inclusion and Community Safety Policy and Accountability Committee. Before we start, there's a few housekeeping points. It's going to be live streamed, this meeting, to the Council's YouTube channel, and by participating you are consenting to be recorded. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave by the nearest exit and take instruction from the security officers. Fire exits are located in the lift lobby. Head downstairs out of the front entrance, and the assembly point is located outside of St. Peter's School. Please can officers introduce themselves before speaking for the first time, and would everyone please speak? Well, we don't have microphones, so we're not going to speak instead. We speak loudly, we'll hear each other. Apologies for absence. We have Councillor Mary couldn't make it tonight. And as we said, we've got Councillor Brockbank Fowler online on Teams, and Officer Neil Thurlow is online as well. Any declarations of interest? No? And do members agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of November as an accurate record? Agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Matters arising. Have you attached it? No. Yeah, next bit. No, okay. As regards to, I just got a note here, as regards to the visit to the police's live facial recognition operation, 3 of us took part in that, and that was very interesting, to observe the deployment in action near the end of last November at Westfield. And that was carried out.
Did they send any stats to that?
No, they haven't, no, but I can chase that. Yeah. And so we go on to item 4 today, which is the revenue and budget medium-term financial strategy. And I'm going to invite Councillor Rowan Reid to give an overview of the 26-27 budget, revenue budget, medium-term financial strategy. So, and Kelly Gooch, you'll be presenting the departmental budget. Okay. Okay.
We've got to disappear to the next pack.
Right.
After this item
yeah,
as well.
that's, so yeah, okay.
That's where we've got hot footed to 145 it's just the same.
Oh,
yeah. So it's a bit of a challenge.
Okay.
Sorry, I think Councillor Brockman has
a question. Do you have
No, sorry, I was just turning off a sign that came up.
Okay. So, Councillor Reid, do you want to?
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much to the committee for inviting me here to talk through the budget for the coming year. I can't believe it's been a year since we did the last one, but time flies when you're enjoying yourself, I suppose. So, in terms of the presentation, I'm going to go through firstly the strategic context in which we are presenting this budget. I'll discuss the fair funding reforms, and then we'll talk through the measures that are in the budget itself and what it is we're seeking to achieve. So if we could move on to the strategic context. This starts with the Chancellor's budget, with this very much sets the overall spending envelope for local governments within the UK. It also provides us with a number of the figures that we use for setting our assumptions within the budget. So the budget estimates that we're going to see modest economic growth, I think 1.5%, which is better than we've had recently, but it's not as good as it could be. Frankly, the worse state the national economy is in, the more demand we see for council services and people coming to the council looking for support. So that's that helps us inform our assumptions around demand for various council services. We've seen inflation continuing to come down. 2.5% was the estimate for the year. Again, not quite at target. Inflation feeds into both our pay awards and the changes in our contracts and interest rates as well. It's coming down from over 5% a couple of years ago. We've seen a number of rate cuts, expecting to see a couple more. That has an impact on both our borrowing and the interest that we receive on the council's balances. Overall, in the budget, there was an increase in funding for local government as a whole, but it did go into details about how that funding was distributed between various councils. So, yeah, elsewhere within the context, we've got to think about things like local demographics and the. Sorry, we're a little ahead of ourselves on the slides. Can we move back to the? So we've got to think about things like changing demographics in the area. That's going to affect demand for certain services. We've got to think about the additional regulation, additional requirements that government places on local government, and we obviously have some longer term regeneration schemes throughout the borough and some capital projects that have got to be funded on an ongoing basis. So if we move on to the second part, the fair funding review. So this, if the budget sets the size of the cake, I suppose, the fair funding review decides how big a slice of that each council gets. Now, the so-called fair funding review is something that has been kicking around government now for over a decade. We've been wary of it for a while. It does mean a change in the funding that Hammersmith and Fulham gets. Unfortunately, it's not a positive one for us. So we're expecting to see a reduction in the money that central government provides local government. We have, as part of this, we have got a 3-year settlement for the first time. So this does help us to plan for the coming years as well. But overall, we're planning how we're going to deal with a reduction in funding. So it is going to be tough choices and working very hard in years to come to try and deliver services that residents have got used to as efficiently as possible. This is just at the moment still a provisional settlement. We got the final figures for this just before Christmas. So this is something I used to complain about the last government doing. So I think it's only fair that I criticise the current government for being pretty late in getting these out as well. And so I want to thank James, Kelly, and the whole of the finance team for working so hard over the Christmas period in order to get us into a position where we're able to present a budget now that we can go through. If we, I would just say it is a provisional settlement, and we are still making representations about the overall figure, but we'll update documents if there are any changes to that. So if we move on to the budget itself, the theme of the budget this year really is about putting our finances on a stable footing for the years to come. We know there are going to be challenges in the coming years, so we want to make sure that our finances and the services that residents enjoy and rely upon are protected going forward. I would love nothing more than to have a big flashy pre-election budget, cutting taxes, throwing money at council services, but unfortunately it wouldn't be prudent to the structure if I were to do that. So this is a fairly steady as she goes budget, protecting what we have and putting us in a position for coming years where we'll be able to continue providing the services that residents have got used to. We are providing some funding in order to meet additional demands in certain areas. We are providing inflation increases to departments, but there's no new growth spending, and in fact we'll be taking a number of efficiencies within the year and looking to carry those on over the medium term as well. So if we could move on, this sets out in more detail the changes that we're making. I'll give you a moment to look at that. You'll see we're putting money in to meet inflation, both for pay and prices. You'll see there that we have been able to generate additional money through the collection fund because we're collecting more council tax than we'd budgeted for in previous years, and that's able to go back into this year's budget. But you'll see nearly £18 million of savings that we've delivered or we're delivering within the year that will make sure that the council's finances are in a safe position for the future. So moving on to some of the essential pressures that we are meeting this year, you'll see money for concessionary fares, additional resources for collection fund. But the biggest of those changes is around the interest receivable due to interest rates cuts. So this is the interest that we get from our cash balances. In previous years, we've been able to put a large amount of money into day-to-day spending. Because of that, we are still putting money in from interest, but it's less. So while this looks like a bad thing in that we've got £2.4 billion less put into the general fund budget, actually overall it's a positive because it means that the interest that we're paying towards other areas is also reduced. So although this appears here as a pressure, there is good news from rate cuts, as I've explained previously. So if you look at the individual savings proposals, again, there we have the full list, making that nearly £18 million. So again, these are efficiencies rather than reductions in service. We've been able to protect frontline services again, and just looking at providing these services more efficiently. So a number of these, particularly in the People's Department, are particularly around identifying problems earlier on. It's cheaper to fix a problem as it's starting than it is coming back in once the problem has grown, harder and more difficult to fix. We've made efficiencies in terms of our local support payments administration. We've improved our collection in a number of areas, and legislation means that we're able to claim credit card transaction fees. So we're taking the opportunity to do that, generating an additional £500,000. If we, you'll see also the interest in collection rates at the bottom there. That's something that we discussed at full council last week. And that's the case both for council tax and for business rates. We could move on. Excellent. That brings my part of the presentation to an end. So in terms of the next steps, I'm visiting all of the PACs both this week and last week. As James says, after this, we'll be rushing over to 145 King Street to discuss the budget with the climate change PAC. The budget itself will be coming to Cabinet on Monday, and then we have special budget council on the 25th of February, towards the end of the month, where it will be voted on by the council. So I'm going to hand over now to Kelly, who's going to talk about the bits that are of interest, I think, to this committee around social inclusion and safety.
Thank you, Councillor. Just get the presentation. Okay, good evening, everybody. Do you have a question?
Victoria?
I'm sorry, is this the moment to ask questions or not?
Should we do questions at the end?
We were going to do after Kelly's presentation.
Oh, okay, fine. Thank you.
Yeah, they're not going away, are you?
You're not going away.
You're not running
You're
away.
saying-
Yeah,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, okay. So we can do it after that, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelly Gooch, I'm Head of Finance for the Police Department. So I'll give you a bit more information about the budget as it specifically relates to the services that are within this PAC. So the social inclusion and community safety budget is really about investing in keeping local people safe. So we have one of the biggest community safety operations in the country, and that investment has allowed overall crime levels to be reduced or sustained during the past year. Burglaries are down 16% in the borough, vehicle offences are down 12%, theft is down 7%, and violence with injury is down 5%. Each year, we're also investing £5.4 million to improve and grow our comprehensive CCTV network. We have one of the most advanced CCTV networks in the UK, with 2,000 council-employed officers monitoring, with 2,000 cameras being monitored 24/7 by council staff. We're the first control room to host 3 boroughs CCTV, and our work helps the police in supporting on average about 600 arrests a year. Every year we invest £4.6 million in our groundbreaking law enforcement team. That team's working with communities. We've got 72 council funded uniformed officers, and last year they carried out over 150,000 patrols, 3,000 weapon sweeps, and resolved 8,400 cases. We're also investing £1 million a year in the first of its kind gangs, violence and exploitation unit here in Hammersmith and Fulham. The service since 2020 have supported 200 young people and families, guiding them to safely transition away from gang association. They've also won a National Theatre Award, working in partnership with the Lyric Theatre on the Cross the Lines project. That was production delivered to 30 schools. And so far in this last year, the service has helped 1,500 young people and 250 residents who've engaged in the council's gangs, violence and exploitation projects. We also invest in this budget about £800,000 a year in ending violence against women and girls and modern slavery and exploitation. Last year, the service supported 500 women and more than 300 children who've been affected by violence. And in July 2024, we're the first council in the UK to prohibit street-based harassment. We had a borough-wide public spaces protection order that is enforced by our LET team. Our specialist domestic abuse court is also recognised nationally as best practice and acts as a mentor court across the country. This budget also invests in social inclusion. We're investing £3.7 million a year in community-based services and infrastructure through our third sector investment fund. At any one time, that fund's supporting 40 groups to deliver more than 50 services. And we're investing £1 million in a coordinated cost of living programme, bringing together a range of council services to support residents in need. So helping them to prevent homelessness, reduce debt escalation, and also supporting those households who are not eligible for national support. This budget also invests in a new financial inclusion strategy. That's about tackling poverty, helping residents with problem debt, and where there's low financial resilience. And this budget also invests in digital inclusion strategy. That's been co-produced with residents, voluntary sector and community organisations, and that's helping to support residents to fully participate in modern life. So this is the revenue budget, or the sort of day-to-day budget for all the services within the social inclusion and community safety area. Next year we have a budget of £23 million expenditure, partially offset by £11 million of income. So it's a net service budget of about £12 million, and you can just see the different areas that that's being invested in. So the key budget changes as we go into the new financial year, Councillor Ree mentioned the inflationary allowance, so there is additional investment in this budget for inflation on major contracts and on staff pay. and savings of just over 900,000 are contributing to the setting of the balanced budget that you saw in the earlier presentation. So specifically in services in this PAC, savings of 367,000 will be delivered from the next phase of the council redesign. So we're looking at all services across the whole council, and the Place Department is now in its third phase. Those service efficiencies will look at transforming and reconfiguring the department to improve frontline services. We're also looking to grow our income by getting more from our fees and charges. So we put our fees and charges up by inflation each year, and our costs are going up, so we need to make sure that we are covering our costs. A lot of the services in this area are statutory, so the level of charges is set by statute. But apart from that, we make sure that we are looking to fully recover all of our service costs, and also remain competitive where we've got commercial services. We're also saving £450,000 of the council's budget on local support payments. So we're continuing that service unchanged, but we are using government funding instead of council budget. So that's allowed us to take £450,000 out of the budget with no impact on service. So we've set a balanced budget for the new year, as Councillor Reid noted earlier. So there are some ongoing budget risks. These are risks that are not uncommon. We have these every year. Inflation continues to be higher than we would like it to be. That does have an impact on how much we have to pay for things. And also the national public finance pressures might impact on specific grant funded areas. So we're working to manage and mitigate those risks by trying to promote the outcomes that this grant funding is giving us, and looking for alternative funding strategies where possible. Also working with our contractors to make sure we can maintain service contract spend within existing budgets. So that's everything on this budget. I'm happy to take any questions or...
Thank you very much, Kelly. So has anyone got any questions they'd like to ask? Yeah, Councillor Victoria Brockbank, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This is really, the first few questions are really for Councillor Reid. The way you presented it, you seem rather rather kind of down on the fairer funding, and I can only agree with you on that basis. It's not fair to the residents of Hammersmith and Fulham. It's not just a reduction, it's a devastating cut. I have come across a figure of £135 million. Now, I think that's over 4 years, or it could be 2. But I'd love you to be able to clarify that for me. I mean, this is devastating austerity. I mean, it's sort of ironic that a lot of the budget presentations over the years have gone on about conservative austerity, where nothing in this scale and size was ever put to our council, and so I'm really, knowing the figures as I do, and you do know that I know how to read the budget. You know, I just don't see what hope we've got for the next couple of years, whoever's in charge.
Well, I can agree with parts of that. I certainly don't. I don't think it's a fair settlement for Hammersmith and Fulham. I can certainly agree on that. And I welcome Councillor Brockbank-Fowler's acceptance of the damage austerity can cause. You know, you're absolutely right. We've been talking about this for years. The £130 million figure, I'm not sure I do recognise that. As you can see from the budget slides that we prepared, the impact of the the funding reforms in year are 8.9 million, which is quite a lot lower than the figure you made. We got a 3-year supplement, so I'm not sure where a 4-year figure would have come from. It's absolutely right that it's a bad thing that our funding is being reduced. I certainly agree with that. But I would caution against the sort of scaremongering that we have seen from some quarters. I appreciate that that's not what you're doing. But we have seen some areas, councils setting their hair on fire and screaming about the impact of it for political reasons, I can only assume. We are aware of that it is going to be difficult. It is going to mean a lot of work to tighten our belts, but that's what we've been doing for years to come. You say this is nothing like what we've seen in the past. Our budgets, as a result of the last government, 14 years in power, was 54% lower in real terms. I mean, that's a heck of a lot worse than what we're seeing. That doesn't mean that this is a good thing. I certainly don't think that. I am very willing to call out bad decisions by whichever government makes them. I think this is a bad decision. Sorry, if I could just.
Thank you.
In terms of this is the formula for this is supposed to be set on deprivation, and by the Department for Local Government's own figures, Hammersmith and Fulham is I think 120th, the 120th most deprived local government area out of 296. So the streets here certainly aren't paved with gold. 60% of local authority areas are less deprived than we are. It seems mad to me that we would be getting a reduction in funding when their own figures say that we're in a relatively worse position than many other council areas. Sorry.
Well, yes. Look, we clearly agree. But you're in administration. It's your Labour government who's doing this. I mean, what are you doing to actually get this changed? I mean, U-turns are the government's favourite thing. 14 is it so far? So, I mean, what about making this the 15th? It just doesn't make sense. I'm slightly confused by you saying that it'll only be 8.9 million. I say only in a kind of pejorative sense next year. Are you? I heard far more.
You mentioned a figure that I don't recognise. I'm not sure anyone around the table recognises that figure. So I can categorically say that that's not the case.
Right.
No, so this is it's phased in over 3 years. The impact in the first year is, as you can see from the slides, £8.9 million. So we have set aside, because as I say, we knew this was coming. This is something that's been kicking around government for over a decade. We've been aware of this. We put aside money to dampen the transition, and so that's what we're doing. We also receive transition funding from the government as part of this.
Clearly, and that obviously is necessary. And there are two other kind of minor points. The collection fund. Well, first of all, that is based on a lot of the second homes coming into the full payment of a double council tax payment. It's not necessarily the new properties part of that is very small, is what I'm saying, because there haven't been a lot of new properties that have come in. It's the second homes that have made up the majority of that. And my other point being, I'm very sceptical about raising the collection rate to 98%. I mean, I know you've got resources of bailiffs and so on now, but nevertheless, I don't think from last year's figures that we made 97%. Which was always an ambitious figure, but because of the arrears.
Well, if I can step in there, you mentioned the second home premium. Yes, we do apply the second home premium. We think it's only fair that people who've got a second home in one of the most expensive parts of the planet can contribute to council tax, which is a particularly unfair tax for those who are least able to pay. But I think I'm not quite sure I agree with your characterisation that new homes aren't contributing to this in any meaningful way. You know, we've got, as I mentioned last week, we've got over 13,000 new homes coming on stream. These will all be contributing. To council tax, and the increase in the collection rate is also playing a part. You say that you're sceptical of us hitting a 97% collection rate. Well, we've already done it. We're collecting 98% already. That's why we've put up the collection rate in the figures. There's no point in us over-promising and under-delivering. That's leads to a problem at the end of the year. We've only done this because we are so efficient at collecting council tax now. As I mentioned in our council meeting last week, you know, we're collecting 98%, so we should reflect this in the budget.
Absolutely, I agree if that's true.
It's true.
Last year, all I'm saying is that there were an awful lot of arrears which weren't collected. It was 4 million or so, the figures in the budget, I think. Well, clearly the bailiffs are working, you know, so that's great. I mean, look, it's clear that you need to get people to pay. I disagree with the second home bonus, but that's obviously a political thing, and you would expect me to.
I'm not sure I would have expected you to be honest, but I'm slightly surprised by that. But you mentioned the bailiff several times. You know, we do have our debt collection policy, which says that, you know, if someone is unable to pay, we don't use bailiffs. This is something that is quite widely respected throughout the sector, and actually the government is consulting on changing the rules around local government debt collection in order to more closely mirror what it is that we do. Where we use bailiffs is for those who can pay but choose not to. You know, tax avoidance is tax avoidance, whether it's council tax or corporation tax or whatever tax it is you're avoiding paying. And we don't think it's fair that some people are happy to let their neighbours pay for services when they don't want to contribute to the services that they get. So where we use bailiffs, it is only for those people who can pay but choose not to.
Okay. Has the homeless strategy been so successful that you can find 1.2 million in cuts?
Yeah, so as I say, a lot of the efficiencies in these areas come from solving problems before they develop. And homelessness is a great example of that. It's one of these areas where if you're able to you're able to pick somebody up at the point at which they are going to become homeless, it's much cheaper than having to put them into temporary accommodation, B&Bs, when they're out on the streets. Yes, there has been a concerted drive on the homelessness strategy in order to tackle the most egregious cases and most expensive cases, and that's what's reducing the spend in this area.
Okay, thank you. My final point is about the CCTV and the coverage. The coverage of the borough in Hammersmith is very great. However, in Fulham, it's almost non-existent as far as crime is concerned. I went to the business crime meeting that Mr. Coleman, MP, held in Fulham the other week, where businesses came because there was a string of incidents on the New King's Road. And it became clear from the council officers who attended that meeting to support him that basically they didn't want to put more cameras into Fulham because it would mean digging up the roads. Now, they obviously had to dig up the roads in Hammersmith to give them cameras. We have been arguing that we need to have more cameras in Fulham because we basically have 4 or 5. We have plenty of speed cameras and things like that, but not crime cameras. And apparently they're different.
Okay, well, if I can answer that, in Hammersmith and Fulham, we have more cameras per head of population than anywhere else in the country. The idea that we can do this by ignoring half the borough is completely ridiculous. There are more than 5 cameras in Fulham. That seems like that's a ridiculous thing for you to say. I'm not sure where you got that figure from.
I've seen the map.
So if I could answer the question you asked, if you want more cameras, then I suggest you vote for our budgets that pay for them instead of voting against them like you did last year. Last year's budget, we put £3.5 million into our law enforcement team. We put £1 million into our gangs unit. We put nearly £1 million into preventing violence against women and girls, and you voted against all of that. Sorry, don't interrupt me. If you want us to fight crime properly, then you have to vote to fund it, and you haven't done that. You've opposed that in the past. So maybe this year you can put your money where your mouth is and vote for our budget.
Sorry, Councillor Ree, I've obviously wound you up a bit because you're now going into the realms of dream world. You're moving the LET funding. That was just a technical move. I mean, they were being funded out of Section 106. Then you put them in the general fund. It makes no difference to anyone, but it allowed you to relaunch it as though it was something new and fantastic. Okay, so I won't go into the others, but look, I think we've probably done our bit for the time being, and somebody else needs a chance. Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm not surprised you're going to carry on because
I would carry on. I could fill up the entire meeting, but it's not fair on the other panel members.
Well, very well. Okay, in that case, I'll just say that the reason
I may come back.
The reason we've moved the LAT team into the general fund is because we couldn't rely on a future Tory administration to protect them. I think you've made it very clear your view on the law enforcement team.
No, I don't. No. You're
through the general fund, and that was the right thing to do.
You're treading on dangerous water there, because I don't know what you're imagining, but I can reassure you that I think I know that you're wrong. The reason that you moved the LET funding to the general fund was to allow you to put all the Section 106 and SIL money into the town hall.
Well, that doesn't make sense. If we're just moving money around, then we could have paid the town hall out of the general fund.
It wouldn't have looked so good on the main body of all the budget papers. It was clever. It was clever. Just shifted about and kind of relaunch it. It's sleight of hand.
There's no sleight of hand involved at all. I mean, I've explained why it is we moved the money for the LET team into the general fund budget.
So you were that worried last year that you were going to lose in May?
I'm not concerned. I'm not worried that we're going to lose. But we have to make sure that the services that residents value are protected, and that was the prudent thing to do, and that's why we did it.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Brock-Backnall, is that?
Yes, thank you very much, Jan.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Lucy? Yeah. You mentioned changing demographics in the area. So I'm quite interested. Are we all is everyone just getting older? Less children. How do you accommodate?
What do you envisage are the changes?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. Yes, so like a number of central London boroughs, we have an overall aging population. We're also seeing, I guess it makes sense, where property prices are very high, when people have children, they tend to move to other areas and then perhaps they move back later on. So we are seeing overall an increase in the age of the population and a decrease in young people. So that puts pressure in different areas. So my understanding is that the change is largely sort of 45 plus, that section of the population. So nobody in this room. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So that's the expanding bit. But we have got, as I understand it, a bit of a bubble in terms of preschool children. So at some stage in the future, the number of young people in the borough who we occasionally go through the primary school system will then go on. So these are things that we have to keep track of. It helps us plan for service delivery, and yeah, we'll continue monitoring it and keep adapting as and when these changes.
So the numbers of young children are down, aren't they?
At the moment, the trend is down. Yeah, although I'm not sure for how long we'll do this.
Can I follow up that? No, just to clarify, so you're seeing an increase in preschool children?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so maybe this larger 45 plus population, maybe is it because people are having children at an older age?
I mean,
coming in.
I think that's
trying to understand why.
Yes.
Because we have had schools consolidating because it's zone 2 we're in,
yeah.
and big kind of four bodies here. But it's quite interesting that you say that we've got an increase in preschool, which means that there must be people of fertile age. So
perhaps we should start playing Barry White through loudspeakers and on our streets.
Yeah, we could do a bit more Barry White. Yeah. Okay, so does that mean that we may be seeing more? We're not certain, but more young people growing up here. Is that?
Yeah, so, hopefully, yes. So again, this is we do monitor demographic changes. Something that we have to keep an eye on. It may be that as these children get to school age, parents decide to move out of the borough. It may be that more people start moving in. So it's not something I want to sort of bet my house on for years in the future. But it is something that we monitor, and it is something that feeds into our forecasting.
So how do we see the 45 plus and the Asian population impacting the budget? You know, how this Let's budget is going to impact that? I mean, I don't know.
So I suppose
any difference?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose with an ageing population, it means that you've got to you would expect to see more demand for some of the social care services that we provide. So we expect demand pressures there, and so that's something that we take into account when setting budget. So that's an example, but it's changes like that will impact how it is we go about doing it.
Okay, thanks. I mean, hopefully, it comes to a government scale with the ageing population, because that is something that is.
Yes, I mean one of the biggest difficulties that we do have is that the last census was carried out in 2021 during the middle of the COVID pandemic, when the population was artificially a lot lower here in Hammersmith. So one of the arguments that we do make, along with other central London boroughs to central government, is that you have to take these figures with a bit of pinch of salt, just because that was taken at a particular time during very particular circumstances.
Okay, thanks. Any more questions? Any questions for Kelly Gooch on her presentation? Thank you, Kelly. I mean, it all looks very positive, what we're funding here, the project is funding over the next, so this is for the 2026, 27, isn't it? I mean, yeah. Is there anything there that we feel it's been compromised? I'm just asking honestly.
No, so we've got some risks still. I mentioned, related to inflation and national funding landscape, and this area does rely on a bit of grant funding for some of its programs. So just continue to keep an eye on that to make sure we can continue to fund those projects and schemes. At the moment, nothing really to know.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Hi.
I just wanted to highlight the point that not many councils across country or even in London, where the bank can be quite high, have invested or invested the level of money that we are in community safety borough. And we've committed to investing even more money for our citizens in the new upgrades we're looking at. So I think that really needs to be highlighted and flagged up really, because it's very important that we are so committed to supporting our residents, their safety, people that come to our borough to visit as well. And we will be able to do that without the brilliant hard work of the community safety team, Ro, Councillor Reid, and officers Kelly and everyone here. So I just wanted to
And Neil.
flag that up. And Neil and Mark, obviously, my community safety group, who are brilliant, dedicated to getting good deals and stuff. But that really couldn't be achieved without the dedication.
Oh, and not forgetting. Do that.
Yes,
No.
yes. Yeah, so
Yeah, no, we're very grateful for our law enforcement team and the investment that's been put in. And hopefully it will continue to keep at it. And that we sort of continue, I think we should all be wary of where we can make improvements as well and make it efficient and monitor where it's working and where we can, learn from it not working too, because that's supposed to be good to reflect on it. So no, thank you. It is a very good thing that we have here. Anything else? Any more questions? So now we just go on to if the members. So no more questions. No one else. No more. Do the members agree to note the budget proposals and make recommendations to the cabinet as appropriate? Agree. And note the proposed changes to fees and charges and make recommendations as appropriate. Agreed. So Councillor Reid and Kelly Gooch, thank you very much for your presentations.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it very much. So you can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Chair.
The next one.
Thank you, Councillor Rockland.
Dash off to 1.5. Can we put better on and get that first? And then we've got the report for the performance for the law enforcement team for information only. But I mean, I'm happy if you want to just kind of present it in general.
Yeah, I can go through it.
Just to give us a summary, if people are happy for that to happen now, as you're here.
yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, so the report covers the period from 1st of April to 31st of December. So I just wanted to highlight some good work which is evident within the appendix itself. But one of the key changes that we've made is the embracing of technology to help our staff be on the ground more often. So since 23-24, that year, we have been using a software which we've been using to manage all our cases. What we wanted to do was design something that was specifically for the law enforcement team, and we worked with the IT team to create that, and that was deployed from the 1st of April. What that's allowed us to do is to reap the rewards of embracing this technological use of a mobile device, which is an app which our officers have on their devices. And it does really good things. For example, we've got faster response times now because the staff are out on the ground more often. They're able to respond to issues as they come in. They cover there's greater ground coverage, and that basically means because they spend more of their shift out on patrol, it also adds to the improved resident experience. So they can do more patrols, they can meet more residents on the ground and speak to them, and log any complaints that they have or any service requests that they have, and then give them a reference number that allows the resident to follow their complaint through its entire life cycle. We've got more data accuracy, so all the patrols are geomapped now. So there's a geographical coordinate that's located, and that allows us to produce more map-based patrol data. There's operational efficiency, whereby our technical support back office officers that monitor all 21 inboxes for the wards. If anyone rings in or emails in to say what's going on with my case, they don't have to chase updates because the updates are getting done immediately and they've got sight of that. This has had, obviously an impact on the patrol data. We've seen a massive upsurge in the year-on-year patrol performance. We're more agile, more responsive, more transparent. We're working much closer with the CCTV team now as well to apprehend and deter and disperse people that are causing problems across the borough or wherever they're found, whether proactively or reactively. In the same month, the data shows that there's been a greater output and more work done in our district centres, such as Uxbridge Road, such as Shepherd's Bush, Hammersmith Broadway, Fulham Broadway, and these are our key areas where we concentrate. Resident demand has increased, and that's because when people see us out on the street, they're willing to talk to us. If they complain about something, we give them a reference so that when we resolve it, they can keep track of when their complaint is being resolved. But what that means is because we're out on the ground more often, rather than a customer or resident emailing in or phoning into the council, we're out on the ground actively logging cases for them on this app. So service requests have grown as a result of our staff being on the ground more often. So the most notable growth has been in our district centres and during patrols on the highway, and that's increased by 97% year on year. That's double, more than double, nearly double, and accounted for 72% of all our activity. Housing patrols. Housing is an important part of our patrol. The patrols that we do, that's increased by 15%. Our visibility in the parks, we had a really hot summer this year, so we were more present in the parks because the parks were open longer and there was a lot of usage, so that's increased by 21%. And we're looking at, what else are we looking at? So North remains, historically, North has always been a very busy area for us. There was ASB complaints did increase by 10% in the North. But what we've done is, because we're out and about more often, whenever we get a complaint about groups assembling in a certain area, per complaint, there's 24 patrols that take place to disperse. And because of our visibility in that area and people see us coming and dispersing them repeatedly, that area, which is usually a hotspot and a gathering spot, is no longer that, because we keep going there and we keep telling them to move on and we keep interrupting whatever activities they're getting up to, whether that's playing loud music or congregating and having a drink on the street, whatever that may be. And again, if I could just scroll past, we're working a lot with the homeless communities, so that's linking in with the Mayor's Charity, but also Turning Point as well. And that was a really good piece of work that we did over the summer, and we've continued that with weekly work that we do now, which is to discourage substance misuse and supporting vulnerable individuals by putting them through all the support mechanisms that are available through Turning Point. So these officers who are outreach workers are going out and providing bespoke guidance to these people on where they can get help. This is post-prison support or housing and homelessness advice, which is really beneficial for people who are entrenched homeless. That's become something that we've celebrated. We continue to do our multi-agency operations every 2 weeks in every ward across the borough. You're all invited, and you're welcome to join us whenever that happens in your wards. And several compliments have come through over this time The most notable one is the large amount of feedback that we get about our work for people that are suffering from mental health issues. And then I just wanted to highlight one. Sorry, the last point I just wanted to highlight is some positive work where we've nominated 2 of our staff for the Star Awards, where they found someone who had overdosed on an opioid lying on the floor in the middle of the night, and it's through our patrols, our officers were able to go there. All of our officers have been trained to administer something called naloxone, which is a suppressant, opioid suppressant. They were able to do that, and that reverses the effects of an overdose, and that buys some time for paramedics to come in and do what they need to do, which is to resuscitate. They're able to do this with this gentleman, take him to the hospital, and as I understand it, he made a full recovery. So that was a really good piece of work that happened really late at night. But it just goes to show the benefits of having staff out on the ground 24 hours a day, out there to help people, to detect problems, not just waiting for people to complain, but going out there actively seeking to ensure that people across the borough, whether they're visitors or residents, are kept safe 24/7.
Sure. So, are you saying that all the, I'm not saying it, I'm asking the question,
Sure.
do all the officers carry naloxone with them then?
We have them in all the vehicles.
On
So,
the vehicles,
yes,
so not
yes,
on their belts like
no,
in Glasgow?
No, so they're kept safe. We only have a certain supply.
Okay,
If we come across, so for instance, what could happen is if someone has OD'd, we could get a call from anywhere at any time. It doesn't necessarily.
So
It
you
might
would
be
get
the
the
police,
drug
for
to
instance.
the
Yeah,
situation.
so it might be the police,
Yeah.
for instance, so they can contact CCTV. They'll let our officers know. The nearest crew will go out and provide that. So we're basically carrying it around with us. And
That's
if there's a
amazing.
need for it,
It's incredible, yeah.
So
And that will
that's-
save a life without a shadow of a doubt, won't it?
And it's really joint approach as well, really like integrated with police, CCTV.
Yeah. So the CCTV is the focal point where everything comes from when it comes to the police. That they needed our help, we could step in very quickly.
And vice versa.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a question. It was actually about mental health issues in the community. And also south of the borough. I'm going to be very specific about the area around Charing Cross Hospital, which is sort of like an anomaly in Fulham Reach. It's got quite a lot of crime there, and which is a lot of it due to the individuals who come from the hospital, I think. And recently we had a lot of issues with Margavin Cemetery, and individuals with mental health problems that were hanging out there. And there's also the substance misuse from the young people there. I know the LEP tends to work on the data you receive from the residents, but do you do work specifically based on the crime demographic there? Would you be able to target Margavin?
We do.
Yeah.
With Margavin itself, I believe there's a college very close by.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the
that's
children-
one part of the problem.
Sure.
Is that the fund of the Red Brick College?
William Morris.
William Morris,
Okay. Not that we want to tar them all in the same brush.
I don't want to say the name, but the children from that college have been found to be congregating in the cemetery. They could be potential. I mean, it's been said that they consume drugs there, but that could be vapes, that could be smoking. We don't know. The reality of the situation is, whenever we get those complaints, we go down there and we speak to these children, pupils, students. But we've also been speaking to the head teachers at school as well, and the teacher.
It's more this recent complaint about someone with mental health issues. What I want to find out more about is what pathways do you have access to? For instance, if you call the police on someone who's behaving in a certain way, the police would then refer that adult to safeguarding adults. But do the LET have the same?
We can do the same too.
pathway?
Yeah. So we've got the community safety officers. If our officers come across someone with those needs, we can make those referrals directly ourselves to adults or social care, and also through our community safety officers who help us to then speak with the police and look out for these people and help them and give them the support that they need at the time of need.
And do you have, I'm being quite specific here, but would you be able to, do you have communication with the Friends Department?
Yes.
So you have been engaged
on the previous time they had a get together and a meeting, we did go there.
Okay. Councillor Fowler, got a question?
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of questions. Does every ward have a full contingent of LETs as of today, for example?
Yes.
So there are 3 per ward?
Not 3, no. So we move our 2. So we move our staff about depending on demand. There are wards, out of the 21 wards, there are varying levels of service requests that come in from different wards. Some wards only need realistically 1 staff member, whereas other wards may need 3. So we move these staff about. In the beginning, when we started the LET, it was always, let's put 2 in every one. But what we soon found is the 2 that were in the busiest ward were under too much pressure and they couldn't keep up with the demand. So we had to allocate staff to ensure that they had enough support, not just to complete their work on time, but also to provide the residents with the adequate level of response time. So if we only have 2 in every ward, you're naturally going to have 2 people in the ward with very low level.
I understand. I understand. But so basically,
there is a named officer for every ward. Yes.
There is 1 named officer for every ward.
There's varying, but at any point, for instance, in the south, we've got the full quota. But for instance, in the Lily ward, where Clem Attlee is in that area, we may have 3 in that ward. But there's other wards, I can't name which ward it is in particular, which only requires 1. But if there was
so is that an extra 1 in Lily, because of the Clem, or is it one of the ones from Fulham Town, for example, that goes to the Clem?
Could you just clarify? Is there a named person? Every ward's got at least 1 named person. Is that
yes.
actually a question? And then sometimes you might have to move people around to manage various situations if crime increases or goes down. But there are 2 per ward, but sometimes they've got to be moved around.
But there's 1 name.
I raise this issue because in the south of the borough, ASB has shot up by 27.9%, which is, these are your own figures. That's clearly something has gone wrong, and I'm concerned that that the LETs are moved to other areas and have allowed antisocial behaviour to flourish in the south.
So what I would say about that is the 2 seniors who are the dedicated seniors for the south, they can step in at any time to support. So, I mean, Neil's got something to say about this. So
Neil, did you want to come in there?
Thank you. Yeah, if I can. So I think it's really important to kind of explain that the desire of the LET team is to build trust and confidence in the community, and the 2 officers per ward are designed to ensure that everyone can raise that trust and confidence in the community. And by seeing it increased in reports to service, I would argue is actually a positive sign, because what it means is that residents are comfortable and confident to reach out to the LET, which we know is not the case for the Metropolitan Police. And so as trust and confidence continues to grow, we should expect to see more people reporting through to us. Also, it's important to note that we've been working very closely with our colleagues in housing and across the estate, so that, again, to encourage our tenants to report more crime in ASB, because we know that sometimes we won't get that in the estates because of various matters which they perceive to be a challenge, or which they need to be helped with. So I obviously hear what's being said around the increase in ASB being a concern, but what I would say to the committee is that the aspirations of the LET at its start was to address, identify and tackle ASB as one of its core pillars of commitment, was to build trust and confidence in the community, to get residents to call us for help and assistance, and to provide that 24-hour service. So my argument would be that actually I think it's a positive sign of an increase. Thank you.
Right, even though it's caveated in the papers by saying that more resources will be moved to the south because of it.
So I think that builds on what Mo was saying, Councillor, in that
right,
we will move assets to help areas where we need to. And obviously, if we need to move our teams around within the south to support one ward over another ward, we'll do that. But it's the nature of a 24/7 service. As with any sort of service of this kind, you have your dedicated wards and officers, and then we'll move others around to support their colleagues to address specific matters. The other thing I'd say is that obviously the night team are not ward specific. So when Mo talks about moving resource, we may well do a period of time where we do work with the night team for a short period of time, and that too means that we move our assets around.
Okay, thank you. That's very clear. Just one final question. The budget that you're given to run the LET, how much has it increased since it started? If you don't know off the top of your head, yeah, you can always send me a message, email me or something later.
Perhaps I can address that. Sure. Mark Rosebeck, Director of Public Realm. I don't have the exact figure off the top of my head, Councillor, but we can send it to you. But what I can say is the budget is sufficient to fully fund the 72 FTEs that are indicated for the LET resources. So all of those resources are fully funded from the budget, but we can confirm those details to you, Councillor.
Would you? I'm just following up on the adjustment of the funding. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Councillor Bokbak. Is there any more questions? No, that's well, thank you for that, Mo. That was very helpful. Yeah, hi. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Casey, I'm a local resident. This place is not South. Today I got an interesting call, not entirely sure who from, but it was asking about, they were notifying effectively that sometime in the coming weeks, they'll be installing a defibrillator outside my work premises. And I was pleased to hear it. Interesting that I didn't know anything about it until I got the call. But is that something? How widely dispersed is that? Do you know?
I know previously there was a team in the council that did the first aid packs to address any SAB or bleeding. I could ask that team and come back to you if that's okay. I don't have the answer for you now about the defibrillator. But I can come back to you. I can take a note and we can come back to you as an action if that's okay.
And the second question.
May I just add on to that? Because it might be a social policy sort of issue actually, because the defibrillators are brilliant. We've got them across the borough. They're clearly needed up at one of my roads. But there's also EpiPens, so you can now get an EpiPen pack, so similar to defibrillators. you can actually get it, and it can be put in key places like the street or in schools or shops. So if someone has an allergic reaction to food, it could be life threatening. And this allergy kit has all of that stuff in it. So perhaps that's something we could look at, suggesting that someone's going to.
Yeah.
How do you know
where to find it?
That's the next thing. I was pleased to get the call.
Yeah,
We're going to be
maps.
communicated.
They can map things out for you, and you can have them in certain places where people know where they are, and then write it against.
Have we got them now?
We don't have any, as far as I know.
Okay.
But you can also get them in schools as well.
So is it a bit like the defibrillator? So if you ring 999, they will tell you where the closest
I'm not too
defibrillator
sure.
is.
I thought maybe it's a policy, something we could explore
Yeah.
and look into. An inclusion thing, but I guess if someone's having an allergic reaction, they know they are, but the ambulance is too far away, so it might be a bit closer that they could get that out with. So just same sort of similar concept really as the defibrillator.
I suppose it has to be like how to get the word out, isn't it?
Yeah. So like looking into it, but also kind of keeping community safe.
You need something like an app, like, like you can find a loo.
Yeah.
Well, there are some.
I'm sure they've got things.
There are towns which do have apps, so you can just have an app which shows you where the defibrillators are.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's what we do.
Need to do
I've
it.
got,
I think
yeah.
there is something like that, and they are willing to around buildings around your borough and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I came across it recently. I was like, we've all got allergies in our families, quite life-threatening allergies. This would just be amazing. Schools, there's always problems with food. So and shops and stuff. So yeah, just a suggestion. I'm sorry, Katie, you were going to ask the second question.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go back to the first one. On the app thing, now the council is, I understand, rebuilding its own parking app because Ringo has its limitations in terms of things to do with allowing people access to clean air neighborhoods and so on and so forth. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea if they could use the same app for this. I think who should we ask for that?
Yeah, maybe it could be a good idea to consolidate.
Digital inclusion department.
But you're right, because it's like you're right, we get overloaded with so many apps. I mean, there is like things like mapping your street.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just that the Hammersmith Fulham app, and it's got
Yeah.
parking, health, allergy support, health support. That's not a bad idea actually. So no, thank you.
And question number 2. That was the one about I like my bag and I like to keep my bag. Oh, so bag theft is, needless to say, a bit of a challenge. In June, the National Cybercrime Conference will be holding in Cheshire. Would anybody be intending or like to attend? Or get somebody to attend?
It's the
National Cybercrime Reduction.
Okay. We're not aware of any details about that, but of course we'll be very interested to understand when that is and what things that's going to cover. Obviously, we're very interested in reducing all kinds of crime. So yeah, I mean, if you could send my colleague here, Mo, when he can exchange details, some information on that, we'd be very interested to have a look.
Yeah, if you copy me in as well, that's really interesting. As an cyclist myself. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. I'm really glad to talk about that. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you very much. So I think we've talked this through now, haven't we? I think we're good. And we're all aware that we're now between 30th of March, 7th of May, we're in pre-election period now. And so the next meeting won't happen. It's supposed to be the 27th of April, but it's going to be cancelled because it falls within the pre-election period. So the next one, I'm not sure the date yet, but we'll let people know, we'll publicise it. So
Thank you everybody for coming tonight and for all your questions and and for your valuable input and funky cycle.